Hello dear students, a very warm welcome to all of you today. Today we will discuss a very beautiful poem titled The World is Too Much With Us, composed by none other than William Wordsworth, a wonderful romantic poet. Before we take up a detailed analysis of the poem, it is important to know about biography and facts of the poet William Wordsworth and the introduction and background of the poem. Let's begin with the introduction to the poet William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth is considered as one of the giants of English poetry of the 19th century Romantic movement in England, whose greatness as a poet has almost been universally recognized. He was born on April 7, 1770 and lived most of his life in the rural west of England known as Lake District. He was an English romantic poet who, with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, helped to launch the Romantic age in English literature with their joint publication Lyrical Ballads in 1798. Before we proceed further, it is important to know the significance of Romantic movement in English literature. The period of Romanticism, also known as Romantic era or Romantic age, is from 1798 to 1837. What does the word Romanticism stand for? Romanticism means romance for nature. Romanticism was an artistic, literary, musical and intellectual movement that originated in Europe towards the end of 18th century and in most areas was at its peak in the approximate period from 1800 to 1890. Romanticism was characterized by its emphasis on emotion and individualism as well as glorification of all the past and nature, preferring the medieval rather than the classical. William Wordsworth has been a person who has really worshipped nature. Matthew Arnold called him the high priest of nature. It is very important from the exam point of view. In some exams this question used to ask who called William Wordsworth the high priest of nature. So answer is Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold called William Wordsworth the high priest of nature. William Wordsworth was poet laureate from 1843 until his death from pleurisy on April 23, 1850. He defined poetry. It is also important, so listen attentively. He defined poetry in his preface to the Lyrical Ballads as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. In simple words, we can say the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. His most famous poems are Lyrical Ballads, The Prelude, The Solitary Reaper, Ode on the Intimation of Immortality, From Recollection of Early Childhood, and some other sonnets. William Wordsworth focused on nature, children, the common poor pupil, and used ordinary words to express his feelings. Now see the introduction to the poem The World is Too Much With Us by William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth is believed to have composed the poem The World is Too Much With Us in the year 1802 when the Industrial Revolution was in full flower. He published it in the year 1807 as the part of collection known as Poems, which were published in 2 volumes. The materialism that the revolution engendered is one of the reasons Wordsworth has written this poem. In this sonnet, he contrasts nature with the world of materialism. This is a beautiful sonnet written in Petrarchan or Italian model with a theme about being away from materialism and enjoying the beauty and glory of nature. This is a universal theme that remains relevant in today's world. The sonnet reflects Wordsworth's philosophy that humanity must get in touch with nature in order to progress spiritually. If we talk about the background of the poem, first of all, we talk the speaker of this sonnet. So we can say the speaker of this poem, maybe some environmental activist-like person, or maybe the poet himself. If we talk about the setting or background of the sonnet, it is a grassland, or called, you can say, lea and pasture overlooking a sea beach. This poem is a complaint of the poet to the pupil of his age, who were not at all moved by the beautiful objects of nature and were engaged all the time in this materialistic world. Now we discuss about the significance of the title. The World is Too Much With Us is one of the excellent poems of William Wordsworth, which was written during the early 1800s. The poem's theme revolves directly upon the material inclination of the world and the tragic result of humankind losing sight of all things truly meaningful. It is a poem which is expressed with a tone of remorse and danger toward the world's state of material inclination. Now let's have a detailed analysis of the poem. This poem is rather a very simple poem, but it does not mean that it has no deeper meaning. There is definitely a deeper meaning which can be found by having a deeper reading and understanding of the poem. But for this poem is a Petrarchan sonnet, which consists of an 8-line stanza called the octave part and the 6-line stanza called the sestet. First we take up octave part of the poem. I am going to recite the octave part. Listen it attentively. So the world is too much, octave part. The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers, little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid bone, this sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune, it moves just not. So, take up the detailed analysis, detailed explanation of this poem. The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. In the beginning of the poem, William Wordsworth illustrates the human nature. We talk about the human nature, how the past and present contributed to evolution of humans. The world is too much with us means we feel too occupied in worldly activities or worldly affairs. Here the phrase late and soon. Here the phrase late and soon could mean sooner or later, or it could mean we have done this recently or in the past and will be doing this in future. It means all the time we feel too occupied in the worldly affairs. The poet wants to say that our fixation on materialism has been a problem in the past and will continue to be so in future. The very next line is getting and spending. Getting means earning money, and spending means spending the earned money on worldly affairs. Earning money and spending have become the chief concerns of our lives. Here Wordsworth is very upset in the beginning itself because it's a complaint of the poet to his contemporary society, to the pupil of his age, who are engaged in the worldly affairs. So William Wordsworth is very upset in the beginning itself with the contemporary society and condemns the excessive interest of pupil in money. Money today rules and governs us. Lay waste our powers. Lay waste our powers means waste our spiritual power in search of material gains. Power means, you can say, our ability to see, to feel, to sense, to be and imagine and even appreciate. William Wordsworth was deeply pained to say that his contemporaries were wasting all their powers and time in earning money only. They had great powers of spiritual evolution and development of the soul, but they wasted all their power in amazing wealth and spending it in wasteful pleasures. The poet feels that it is of no use, as this will make our sense of beauty to starve and die. The poet feels that sense of beauty is a part of our higher nature and it should be fully developed. The next line are, little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away is sordid boon. Here, little we see in nature that is ours means we have become blind to the superior influences of nature and are engaged in exploiting her resources only for our material gains. Here the word little presents the negative sense, means non-existence, na ke barabar. It means that we paid very little, very less attention to the beauty of nature. Nature belongs to us. That is ours means nature belongs to us, belongs to everyone. The poet wants to say that we do not find time to appreciate the beauty of nature which belongs to us. It means that today we find how society is so bent on making and spending money that it ignores the pristine glory of nature, which is reflection of the divine. People become absorbed in materialism and distancing themselves from nature, and by doing so they are destroying themselves with consumerism. The next lines are, we have given our hearts away a sordid boon. Here sordid boon means mean bargain, very mean bargain. It is for material wealth. This phrase is used for the material wealth, which is a mean and base gift for a man. Given our hearts away means we have bartered the power of our hearts for pretty gains. Here the poet wants to say that we have completely bartered the power of our hearts and souls with worldly affairs, which is unworthy, and now our hearts are without final feeling for nature. The figure of speech named, you can say, the oxymoron. Later on in this lecture we will discuss the figure of speech used in these poems. Then we will see. So oxymoron is used in sordid poem. Okay. Further in this poem, the poet explains how nature become helpless in front of our ignorance. The poet portrays the greatness as well as helplessness of nature in front of human greed for a materialistic life, as we can see this in the upcoming lines of the poem. The upcoming lines of the poem are, they say that bears are bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. Here, bears her bosom means exposes her vast bosom. Here, she is personified. Human qualities are attributed to the sea. The sea means he exposes her vast bosom to the silver light of the moon and its attraction. The wind that will be howling. Howling means roaring sounds, that makes the roaring sounds, the horrible sounds. In these lines, the poet says that we do not care about nature's gift like sea and whirlwind, as our eyes are blinded by glitter of materialism, and we keep enjoying and we keep ignoring and damaging the nature. He portrayed some beautiful skins of nature, as you can see, the sea that bears her bosom to the moon, and the winds. So beautiful skins of the nature here portrayed by the poet. These say that bears her bosom to the moon. Here the poet says that the sight of the grand sea laying open in the glare of moonlit night does not attract us. The winds that will be howling at all hours and are gathered now like sleeping flowers. The winds that would be making horrible sounds during the day are calm and quiet at night, like sleeping flowers. Simile is used here. Simile, two different objects are used by using the word like, so, as, so So winds is compared to sleeping flowers with the use of word like. So the winds that will be making horrible sounds during the day are calm and quiet at night, like sleeping flower. But we have no time to appreciate their beauty. We have no sense of appreciation for such a great beauty of nature. We are always busy with the material pursuit of life. Means the people are not at all moved by the beautiful objects of nature. They do not have any love for the sight of moonlight falling on the surface of the sea, or the pictures of winds which making horrible noise throughout the day but sleep like flowers at night. Nor the pupil have any liking for any other lovely aspects of nature. The poet is very disappointed with the attitude of his contemporary society. For this, for everything we are out of tune. It moves us not. Here, out of tune means out of harmony. Means we have no interest in nature. We have no interest in the beauty, pristine glory of the nature. Here the poet wants to say that we are out of touch with nature, but it could also mean that we are not in right tune for the natural world, or in the right frame of mind to get it or to accept it. Here, according to poet, we are unable to live in harmony with nature. We are out of tune means we are unable to live in harmony with nature. Now the next part of the poem, the last 6 lines of this poem, which are called the sestet part, which is also called as solution to the problem. Okay, I am going to recite this book. It moves us not, great God, I would rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outward, so might I, standing on the pleasantly, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. Great God, it would rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outward. Here we can find the allusion of pagan. Allusion later on we will discuss in this video. First of all, we will discuss about pagan. Pagan, who were pagans? Pagan is a follower of old faith of ancient Greece and Rome that flourished before the spread of Christianity. The old pagans believed in a number of deities presiding over the different objects of nature. Everywhere in nature, the pagan could feel the presence of these deities. Consequently, he was never lonely in a field or on mountain or on the seashore. It is this aspect of paganism which attracts Wordsworth, the lover of nature. Paganism brought man much closer to nature than Christianity has been able to do. Suckled means flourished or brought up. A pagan suckled in a creed out one means, suckled means brought up, nourished, nurtured. Creed means you can say a faith or religion out one, means old, absoluted or outmoded, you can say. In these lines, the poet is so much disgusted with the ugly life of his age that he desires to run away to the outward creed of the pagans, who were simple and innocent people, so that all he could see, all he could know was the wonder and the majesty of nature only. Means the poet wants to be nurtured in the extinct creed of paganism. Here William Wordsworth demonstrates his anger for ignoring the pristine glory of nature. He exclaims, if the beauty and kindness of nature cannot turn our minds from materialism or spirituality, then he would become a pagan. He says that if the beauty and kindness of nature cannot turn our mind from materialism and spirituality, then he would become pagan. He complains to God that in such a heartless world, he would be happier to be a person who does not believe in God but believe in nature, like the old Greek world of pagans. So might I, standing on the pleasantly, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Lee means pasture, meadow, grassland. Here the poet says that in the company of the pagans, so might means if I become a pagan, then in the company of pagans he would stay beside meadow, stay beside the pasture, stay beside the grassland, and enjoy himself among the variety of beautiful objects of nature, which makes him less isolated, less forlorn. Forlorn means alone, isolated. He wants to say that in the company of nature he will feel less lonely. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his riddle horn. Here also we can find the allusion of Proteus and Triton from Greek mythology, you can say. Let's know about Proteus first. Proteus was an old man of the sea in Greek mythology who possessed the gift of prophecy and the power of assuming any shape he pleased. And Triton is also a minor deity who used to blow his conch shell in order to collect together the creatures of sea kingdom. Here the poet says that in company of pagan he would get an opportunity to see sea god Proteus arising from the sea, and to hear the sound of conch shell blown by Triton. If he become a pagan, he may have opportunity to see the sea god Proteus, which would rising from the sea, and hear the sound of conch shell blown by the minor sea deity Triton. Thus, definitely this poem has a valuable lesson for all of us today. Wordsworth suggests that we should spend more time respecting nature, because nature is no longer important to any one of us. Now see the use of figure of speech in this poem. First of all, the figure of speech which is used in this poem is personification. What is personification? Personification is a figure of speech to attribute human characteristics to non-human or even inanimate objects. If non-human or inanimate objects are attributed human qualities, human characteristics, then it is called personification. The poet has used personification at several places in this poem, such as you can see in the line that sea that bears her bosom to the moon. Here sea is personified, who opens her bosom, who exposes her bosom to the moon. The next use of personification is in the line the winds that will be howling at all hours. Here wind is personified. Sleeping flower, the sleeping flowers are sleeping, they attributed human quality. So in these three examples you can see the use of personification. All these expressions make nature possess human-like qualities like yearning for love, sleeping and shooting. The next figure of speech used in this poem is simile. What is simile? You all know that two different objects are compared to each other by the use of like, as a, so as. So there is one simile used in the 7th line of this poem, which is and are up gathered now like sleeping flowers. The poet has linked the howling of winds with the sleeping flower. Next figure of speech is used is metaphor. There is one metaphor is used in the 10th line of the poem as suckled in a kid outworn. Here kid represents mother that nurses his child. Next figure of speech, as we have already talked, is allusion. Allusion is an indirect or direct reference to a person, place, thing or idea. Listen it attentively, it is very important figure of speech. Allusion is an indirect or direct reference. It may be the indirect or maybe direct reference to a person, place, thing or idea of historical, cultural, political or literary significance. It may be taken from history, the direct or indirect reference of person, place, thing or idea may be taken from history, culture, politics, or even from literature also. Okay? It does not describe in details, only the name is given, details are not provided in the poem or in some stanza. So it does not describe in details the person or thing to which it refers, only the name is given there. It is just a passing comment, just the poet uses the name only and just passes away. Passing comment, and the writer expects the reader to possess enough knowledge to spot the allusion and grasp its importance in a text. What is the importance? The poet assumes that the reader may know about this name in detail. So, and what is the importance of this allusion in this poem? This poem contains allusion to Greek mythology as have sight of Proteus rising from the sea. Oh, here old Triton blow his wreathed horn. Here Proteus and Triton is taken from Greek mythology. So these are the example of allusion. Pagan is also an example of allusion. This question is used to ask in exam. So remember it carefully. The next figure of speech which is used in this poem is oxymoron, a phrase that combines two words that seems to be opposite of each other is oxymoron. If in a phrase two words are totally opposite to each other, that is oxymoron. So here we have already talked in the beginning itself. The sordid boon. Sordid boon is an example of oxymoron. Sordid means mean kind, boon is just opposite to this. So now let's take the structure and tone of the poem. Wordsworth's this poem is a Petrarchan sonnet which consists of an 8-line stanza called the octave and a 6-line stanza called the sestet. The first stanza presents the theme or a problem, and the second stanza develops the theme or suggests a solution to the problem. This Italian sonnet uses the last 6 lines to answer the first 8 lines. The first 8 lines, that is octave or the problem, and the last 6 lines is the solution. In the octave part, the poet is grieved to note that people become more and more materialistic, while in the sestet part, he desires to go back to the age of pagans. Wordsworth wrote most of the line of this poem in iambic pentameter, in which the line has 5 pairs of syllable pentameter. Penta means 5 syllable of pairs. Each pair consists of an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable, which is called iambic. Iambic means the first is unstressed syllable, then stressed syllable, that is called iambic, and if 5 iambic is there, is iambic pentameter. The rhyme scheme of this poem is ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, CD. To conclude, by writing this poem, William Wordsworth sent out a beautiful message to everyone in this world 200 years ago. But it can still be applied in life today. People should not get caught up in worldly possessions and forget their roots and connections with nature. Dear students, hope you enjoyed the session. We look forward to meet you in next class.